February 13th, 2014, that is the launch date of Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze back on the Wii U. That is the last new main installment in the Donkey Kong franchise that we have seen, period. That means, of course, if you do the math, as of February next year in 2024, it will have been a full 10 years since we have seen a mainline Donkey Kong game release on a Nintendo console. Of course, we had Tropical Freeze re-released in 2018 on the Nintendo Switch, but if you're somebody who is legitimately a fan of Donkey Kong games over the years, and maybe you love Country 1 through 3 like I do, and whether it's 2D or 3D, you're just ready to see a return for some kind of DK game, we don't have anything official from Nintendo, but what we do have that we have to dive into in this video is a big update for Donkey Kong that Nintendo just dropped for 2024. And unfortunately, while it doesn't have to do with games at this point in time, I think I can make the case that there's a lot of evidence pointing towards Nintendo wanting to push Donkey Kong back into the mainstream with something like a new mainline game, and that is due to the fact that Nintendo may want to cross-promote a Donkey Kong game around the same time that they are opening up a massive expansion to the Super Nintendo World theme park over in Japan. As you can see the following post over on X, which reads, Super Nintendo World at Universal Studios Japan is leveling up with an all-new Donkey Kong Country area opening in spring 2024, featuring a thrilling family coaster, Minecart Madness. More exciting details revealed at their website. Then the further details read, play wild, let your passion run wild, immerse yourself in the world of Mario and friends, and use your whole body to have fun. And now... That's kind of funny that they said it like that. Anyway, and now Donkey Kong has arrived. Anything can happen in his jungle, and that means thrills and exhilaration. Before you know it, you'll be caught up in the excitement, body, and soul. This only takes place in the world where kids and grown-ups alike can return to the wild and play it all out with Mario and Donkey Kong. The magic word is play wild. Awaken your instinct to play. Go on a wild adventure in the world of Donkey Kong. Step foot into an unknown wild space with lush greenery. In this jungle where Donkey Kong and his friends live, you can hop on a minecart from the Golden Temple for a thrilling ride through the mines. Challenge yourself at a play experience using your whole body. I don't know if Reggie Fils-Aimé wrote this, it sounds like he did, and have loads of other wild adventures. Plus, you can check out all the food and merchandise in the middle of the jungle. Awaken your instinct to play and enjoy all of the fun and surprises that the world of Donkey Kong has to offer. The new area, Donkey Kong Country, to open in 2024. So while Nintendo could in theory just promote this Super Nintendo World expansion with the DK portion of the Universal Studios experience as a standalone thing, and they don't really have to talk about any game in the Donkey Kong franchise or do any kind of cross promotion on a gaming front, I also think that it makes a lot of sense to get DK back in the conversation in 2024 from a gaming perspective. We do know that we have Mario versus Donkey Kong coming back, which of course is not a mainline Donkey Kong game, but Donkey Kong's name is in the title, to be fair, and that is a 2024 release in the beginning of the year. You could say that maybe that is the game that kind of lines up with this launch around the springtime that Nintendo is touting for the Universal Nintendo of Japan theme park. But if you stop and think about the success of the Super Mario Bros. Movie, the commercial box office blowout hit that was, and Donkey Kong playing a very prominent role within it, and Nintendo choosing to do the Donkey Kong section of their theme park next, they clearly see Donkey Kong from a different lens when it comes to mainstream recognizability and just your average person walking down the street. They know Mario, they know Donkey Kong, they might know Link from Zelda, they might not. Donkey Kong is just another one of those mascots over the years that has become synonymous with Nintendo branding, and I do think that it makes all the sense in the world to potentially gear up Donkey Kong to come back in a big way on multiple fronts. And when you look at it from a sales and business perspective, Donkey Kong games historically perform very well on Nintendo consoles. Going back to Donkey Kong Country on the SNES, which launched in '94, on just the SNES alone sold 9.3 million copies, so not a bad performance at all. And it was re-released on Game Boy systems over the course of time, and it crossed over 13 million total sales in terms of just that one iteration of Donkey Kong. You then have Donkey Kong Country 2 that with its combined releases sold 6.14 million, Donkey Kong Country 3 4.1, Donkey Kong 64 sold 5.2 6.27 million. Donkey Kong Country Returns between the Wii and 3DS versions of that game sold 9.47 million, and Tropical Freeze between the Wii U release and the Switch release sits at 6.14 million. So there's plenty of revenue to be made for Nintendo by bringing back Donkey Kong, and what's interesting is the studio who has been responsible for the Donkey Kong Country games as of late, being Tropical Freeze and Donkey Kong Country Returns, is none other than Retro Studios, and we know that they are busy working on Metroid Prime 4. At least we assume that that game is still heavily in development. It could be towards the tail end. Maybe they have some kind of bandwidth to take on extra projects, but I am willing to bet that Donkey Kong is not being handed over to Retro this time, and likely you have one of Nintendo's EPD groups working on this game. There has been some rumors and rumblings that some kind of new Donkey Kong game that would ditch the country moniker could be in the works, and that it was being developed by the same studio that's responsible for Mario Odyssey and the 3D Mario games. That's entirely possible. Are they going to go a 3D direction for Donkey Kong? I definitely see a lot of people, when we talk about DK in the comments, mention that they're ready to see something like a Donkey Kong 64 but brought back in the modern day. Now, I have the most nostalgia and the most enjoyment for Donkey Kong Country 1 through 3, and really 1 and 2 being the big pinnacle best platformers of all time ever, and I think I can actually say 2 is maybe my favorite platformer of all time in history. When it comes to a 2D platformer, it's literally that quality to this day. I can play it start to finish and enjoy it thoroughly through and through. I still think that when you talk about Donkey Kong Country Returns on the Wii and then Tropical Freeze on the Wii U and Switch, that those hold up as some of the best platformers of all time as well. And I think that a 2D Donkey Kong is successful, but I also think a 3D Donkey Kong is successful, or I think there's a possibility that instead of the Donkey Kong 64 style game where you kind of control the entire camera or movement, maybe they go the Kirby and the Forgotten Land way, where it is an entirely 3D game, but more of that fixed zoomed out camera perspective as you're traversing through all of the different levels. The point is that Nintendo has a massive franchise on their hand that has mainstream household mass audience appeal that they just have sitting on the shelf for essentially coming up on 10 years at this point. And I think that the correlation with the announcement of the expansion of Super Nintendo World Japan getting Donkey Kong next could heavily hint that Nintendo does have some bigger plans for DK in 2024, and I'm hopeful that something like the February Direct or maybe the June Direct does indeed reveal a brand new, fresh Donkey Kong experience, and we may even be talking about that being in the launch lineup conversation for Nintendo's next generation hardware that we should likely expect to release at some point in 2024. But I really want to hear from you guys on what you want to see from the future of DK. Are you more hopeful that we get a return to form with the classic 2D style platforming, make it a Donkey Kong Country game yet again, but just do more and more with it, take Tropical Freeze to the next level with some kind of brand new story and gameplay experience? Or do you want to see DK go into more of a 3D style, more similar to what we saw with Donkey Kong 64? And do you think that that could be pulled off very well for DK? Or do you think that a best of both worlds scenario is something like a Kirby and the Forgotten Land style game, but with DK of course being front and center in all of it in the DK world? And do you think that the announcement of this theme park expansion in Super Nintendo World over in Japan leads into the idea that Nintendo has something big up their sleeves for DK in 2024? Or do you think we might go well past 10 years without hearing any kind of updates around DK games now or in the near future? So regardless of your thoughts and feelings on everything we talked about today, I do look forward to hearing from you all in the comments down below before you leave the video, as I do look forward to getting a back and forth conversation started with you all around these topics. Go watch the video on screen next if you haven't already. Also make sure you like, subscribe, turn on your notification bell, and I will see you guys in the next video.